All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to decode one of the most feared threats in the entire digital world, ransomware. But here's the twist. We're not just going to talk about the attack. We're actually putting on the defender's helmet to understand the playbook for fighting back. I want you to just imagine for a second. What if every photo, every important document, all the critical data that runs your business was suddenly locked away from you? That's not a movie plot. That is the reality of a ransomware attack. And it's exactly why understanding this threat is so important. So what is this stuff, really? Well, at its core, ransomware is basically digital extortion. Some malicious software finds its way onto a system. It encrypts all the files, which just means it scrambles them so they're completely unreadable. And then, boom, it demands a payment, a ransom, to get the key to unlock them. So you might be wondering, why do they do it? While some attacks are definitely about causing chaos or just stealing data, the truth is, well, it's pretty simple. For the vast majority, we're talking a full 70%, it is purely about money. This is a business, a very profitable one, and that financial incentive is what drives the whole ransomware economy. Okay, so if you want to stop an attack, you have to think like a defender. So let's do that. We're going to break down the anatomy of an incident, looking for those little cracks, those weaknesses the good guys can actually exploit at every single stage. You see, an attack isn't just one single event. It's more like a chain. It all starts with reconnaissance, where attackers are just kind of poking around, looking for weaknesses. Then comes the initial access. That's often something simple, like a phishing email. From there, they get a foothold. They start moving silently across the network, looking for the good stuff, the valuable data. A lot of times, they'll even steal it. That's the exfiltration part. And only then, at the very end of this whole process, do they actually hit the button and encrypt everything. Now, for a defender, every single one of those steps is an opportunity to catch them. And here's the thing that makes detection so incredibly challenging. The attackers, they don't always use some obvious piece of malware. Instead, they do this thing called living off the land, which basically means they use the legitimate built-in administrative tools that are already on your systems, and this lets them just blend in with all the normal everyday activity, making them much harder to spot. This really gets to the heart of a core defensive principle. Massive outbreaks like WannaCry, they didn't have to happen. They spread by exploiting a known vulnerability that already had a fix, a patch, available. It's a really hard lesson on why just keeping your systems updated is honestly one of the most powerful defenses we have. Okay, so we've seen the attacker's life cycle. Now, let's flip the script and open up the defender's playbook. How do security teams actively hunt for and respond to these kinds of threats in real time? This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If the attackers are trying so hard to be stealthy, how in the world do you find them before it's too late? Well, the answer is all about looking for the right kinds of clues. Defenders are generally hunting for two main types of clues. On one hand, you've got what we call static indicators. Think of these as known bad things, like a malicious file name or an IP address we know belongs to an attacker. These are useful, sure, but they're also really easy for an attacker to change. But on the other hand, you have behavioral indicators, the actions an attacker takes. Think about it. A program that suddenly starts encrypting thousands of files is super suspicious, no matter what it's called. And that is where modern defense really focuses its energy. So what do these behaviors actually look like in the wild? Well, on the network, it could be a sudden, massive transfer of data heading out the door when it shouldn't be. On an individual computer, what we call an endpoint, it's that classic telltale sign of a single program just rapidly modifying or renaming thousands and thousands of files. These are the digital tripwires. Ultimately, this is the key takeaway for detection. Just relying on catching a specific malicious file, the artifact, that's a really fragile strategy. A truly strong defense is built on recognizing the pattern of an attack. It's all about spotting the suspicious behavior regardless of the tool being used to carry it out. Now, detection is absolutely critical, but the ultimate goal is to never have to detect an attack in the first place, right? And that brings us to our final and honestly most important section, how we can all build a digital fortress with proactive prevention measures, because prevention really is the best cure. Let's start with your absolute best safety net, your backups. The 3-2-1 rule is a really simple but powerful framework. The idea is to have at least 3 copies of your important data on 2 different kinds of storage, and this part is crucial. Keep at least one of those copies completely offline or off-site, totally disconnected from the network. If the worst happens, this is how you recover without paying a single dime. Beyond just backups, a strong fortress is built in layers. You start with a front door, things like multi-factor authentication, which makes stolen passwords basically useless, and consistent patching to close those known security holes. Then, you limit what an attacker can do if they do manage to get inside, using concepts like the principle of least privilege and network segmentation. Each control is just another wall, making the whole environment really hostile for any intruder. This quote really captures the modern security mindset perfectly. It's a fundamental shift from being reactive to being proactive. The goal isn't just to be able to survive an attack, it's to make yourself such a difficult and unattractive target that attackers decide, you know what, it's not even worth the time, and they just move on. So, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. From the passwords you use every day to the backups you keep, prevention is a strategy that every single one of us can participate in. The only real question left is your fortress ready for the test?